There are so many steps. It is confusing. You know why it's confusing? Because it rhymes, but it's not exactly the same. So we're going to do a couple of videos about the steps to purchase a property and the steps to close on a property. So depending on your situation, it's going to be a little different, and there's a lot of steps involved, so I apologize in advance. Number one, when you purchase a property in Casco Viejo, what are the steps? So mainly you have several types of product. Let's say you're buying a pre-sale, something that is on plans, it's under construction, it's about to be delivered. You can do this with resales as well, but it's less common, for example, to go into a reservation agreement. So usually you will do that when you're going into a pre-sales, something is under construction, it's on plans, and you like something and you hold it with an amount of money. In Panama, it's customary for this type of pre-sales, especially in Casco Viejo, my experience has been anywhere between 5,000 to 10,000, and you will be able to hold that property out of the market. Let's call that 15 days. Some developers will do a month. Usually 15 days, I found that is the most customary. Depending on the product, depending on the developer, that can either be non-reimbursable or reimbursable. So we have worked most of the time with reimbursable reservation agreements. So it was going, just ask in every case, because it's going to vary depending on developer, depending on owners and product. And again, mostly this will be for property that's under construction or anything that is pre-sales. Once it's more of a resale, most likely you're going to be going straight into a contract. So once you make an offer and there's an agreed price and agreed terms, you are going to go into contract. I have some clients ask for a sample contract before even making the offer. For resales, it's not that common to give a contract out. For pre-sales, it's more common that a developer would already have a standard agreement, to send out. Most agreements are going to be signed in Spanish. There are some owners and some developers that will provide an English translation, but remember, you are in Panama. The official language is Spanish. If anything was to go to court, it is going to be the Spanish version. So if you do sign something in English, just understand that, once you go to court, it's going to have to be translated, and there's a whole procedure for that. The official language is Spanish, so the official documentation will be in Spanish. When we see the closings, you'll see everything will be in Spanish as well. So my first recommendation when purchasing a property in Panama is get a good lawyer, because that person is going to be representing you, reading through the contract and reading it with the eyes of someone who knows the system in Panama. I have dealt with many clients that are lawyers in their places of origin, and they all come with their knowledge of contracts, and most of the contracts, frankly, they do have elements that are common, but they're very specific things that are specific to Panama. And that would be customary here and not in other places. So again, it's going to rhyme, but it's not going to be the same. So get a good attorney in Panama to read the contract and tell you what is the standard, what he has seen, what he's used to. And also, once you sign, to make sure that you're signing a version that has been agreed. Even though maybe it's in Spanish, then it says it has been translated, or you had a translator, an official translator, talk to you if you were not understanding the document. So step one. Now, once you sign the promissory purchase agreement, most likely you're signing with a 10%. If you're signing a resale, sometimes it's going to be a 15%, sometimes it's going to be a 20%. It depends on the situation. That money does not go into an escrow. So for example, that would be a change between the system in the US versus Panama. In the US, you're so used to escrows. In Panama, less so. So usually that money goes directly to the seller. And many times that money is the one that the seller uses in order to pay taxes and to pay everything that he needs to clear out in order to transfer to you. Because in the Panamanian system, everything has to be paid in advance. There are some escrow services now in Panama. It is not widely used. I'm assuming with times changing, it will get to be more common. But at this time, what is the standard is that the seller receives the money and manages the payments for the taxes, water bills, garbage bills, all sorts of things that need to be paid before the transfer. So just, it's not going to go into an escrow most of the time. Now, if you're using an entity, there's always the question of who signs. And some of my clients, they said, well, I want to do everything myself. And I understand that. There's a lot of clients that are very hands-on and they do want to look at everything. But that takes also a lot of flexibility and a lot of knowledge. My experience is that most of the time, people travel, they are out and about, and there is a timing for closings. When we see the closing video, you'll see, and you cannot predict, you cannot completely give a date because there's a lot of pieces in that element, in that train, that is not on the hands of the seller or the buyer, but in the hands of maybe a bank, maybe the government, the public registry. So things will have a rhythm, and we will be able to give an estimate, but it's not going to be super exact. So are you going to be able to travel for the purposes of, maybe your intention is yes, but life happens, and then what do we do? So if you can, give power to your attorney. Once you have seen the product, once you are happy with the product, the rest is paperwork. So give a power to your attorney and let your attorney run with the paper, because there's no value added to you being there other than checking on the product and making sure that the important pieces of the purchase, which is what you're receiving, are in place. So there you go. That's my second recommendation. Now, letters of payment. Oh my God. This week has been a particular week where we have gotten many answers to the question of how do I pay this? Depending where you are and what are you doing? And yes, banks change their policy constantly. Gosh. The standard way of doing it in Panama is through a letter of payment in a Panamanian bank. Okay? Why? Because that assures that the money is in Panama. Where? In your account. So that money is not leaving your account. What your bank is issuing is a piece of paper that says that the money is in fact escrowed in your account for the purposes of this purchase. So what you're going to give me or the seller is a letter that says that. With that letter, it's a guarantee. Now the owner has the trust, the confidence of paying in advance what is thousands and thousands of dollars in taxes and expenses and all sorts of things in order to get everything clean, in order then to craft a minuta deed and be able to transfer to you. All based on the promise of the document that you're delivering that says that the money is in your bank account escrowed. So it is kind of like a backdoor to that whole escrow figure without using a true escrow agent. So it's going to be escrow in your account. If you can't do that, you can always try and transfer at the moment of closing. These require a lot of trust between the parties. We try to say and recommend as much as possible, use your letter of escrow. Or a real escrow agent. There are escrow agencies in Panama. Because it is just the safest thing, it's the healthiest thing for both parties. It's the cleanest thing. It's like having a third party involved that is your trustee for the money. There's a lot of moving pieces. So, if this is your first purchase in Panama, try to do it through a letter of payment. And ask your bank what are the requirements to ask for the letter of payment. For example, issue this week. Client, it's abroad, send the funds to his bank account. He didn't leave the instructions while in Panama to do the letter of payment. this particular bank has a policy, which is an internal policy, of not issuing letters of payment if the client is abroad. So they require physical presence. Now the client has to travel. Cannot do it online, cannot do it by email to his officer. He has to actually come. So that could be a major situation if you're getting to the closing of a deal and all of a sudden, oops, you find out your bank has this policy. So make sure you understand which bank you're using, what's the policies for letters of payment, and what's required. If you're not going to be here, then what do they require in order to give those instructions? So you get that aligned. Now, tax payments. Yes. One of the things that the seller has to do is pay plenty of taxes. You have to pay a 2% transfer and a 3% of the total amount. So you will see that all of that is done before the deed gets even crafted, because all of that information goes into the deed. So all those receipts, everything goes into the deed so that it's clear that everything got done. And then it goes to the registration and all of that. Usually your letter of payment, once the document comes out, once the deed comes out with your name on it, then the owner takes your letter of payment and goes to the bank and cashes it. That is going to take normally about a week if everything is fine, especially for cash transactions. The banks usually disburse in about a week. If it's a mortgage, they might take a little longer, but usually it's around that. So everything gets done, everything gets transferred, and only then that letter becomes cash and it leaves your bank account. Now, I'm gonna do a video only on the closing because it sounds pretty simple, but sometimes it's nerve-wracking, especially if it's a pre-sales. I know! So that deserves its own video, so keep tuned. And if you like this video, subscribe.